Chronic lower back pain can be a real pain in the butt, or legs if you also have neurological symptoms involved. Truth be told, there's an infinite amount of things that could be causing your pain, but today we're going to go over a few movement/mechanical based possibilities and see if we can't find you some relief. Which brings us to our first step, desensitization. The concept of desensitization is relatively simple. Basically what it means is that we need to stop doing the things that irritate our back. This is until we can create a support system that is strong enough to reduce the stress that's on the injured tissue and then give it time to heal. Sounds easy enough, right? However, if you're someone who's not quite sure what's causing their back pain and it seems more random, then check out my videos on flexion and extension intolerance. It's gonna put you in a little bit more of a category, which is gonna greatly help you in dissecting your day and finding out what movements are irritating your lower back. And then come back to the video. All right, now moving on, we're assuming everyone now has a good idea of what could be causing their pain as far as the categories go, and let's get started with an example. I wanna start with an easy example of desensitization in practice. Let's say Bob here has a herniation on the L4 disc, and whenever Bob bends over, rounding the spine, Bob has sharp pain in the lower back. Now this is flexion, so that would mean that Bob is flexion intolerant. Now that means that Bob would want to scour his day for everything that has flexion involved in it and modify, reduce, or eliminate those things. But Anthony, are you telling me that rounding the spine over is bad? That bending over is putting too much stress on the back? Well, the answer to that is definitely not. We want to make sure the spine is getting a lot of movement regardless if we have an injury or not. However, in this particular scenario of Bob, he would want to eliminate that for the time being or modify and then allow that tissue to recover. So this is not like a never bend again and become a robot situation. This is just adapt your movement for the time being, get better support systems involved, and allow the time for the injury to settle down, to desensitize. However, excessive loading on injured tissues is going to slow down or stop the recovery process. So instead, we need to create support strategies to allow that time to heal uninterrupted. Now, these strategies can be bracing the core. It can be twisting from the hips and not everything from the spine. It can be hinging from the hips instead of just completely rounding the spine over. These are a few examples of some things that we can implement into the day so we don't actually have to cut things out. And what better place to look for these hidden back offenders throughout your day than in the 3 things that you most likely do the most throughout your day: sleep, work, and hobbies. But for sake of example, I'm going to assume that your hobby is the gym. So that's what we're going to talk about. However, if you do have a hobby that's causing you lower back pain and you're not sure why, leave it down in the comment section and I'll get back to you. First topic, which is sleeping positions. Now this is a tough one because a lot of people refuse to change their positions. When you first wake up in the morning, you should not feel lower back pain. But if you do, here's a few things that you can alter with your sleeping position that can potentially help you. All right, we're gonna start with my least favorite sleeping position, which is the stomach sleeper. Now, if someone has a soft bed and also sleeps on their stomach, this is gonna allow their back to go into quite a bit of extension, and that can cause pain by irritating the facet joints. Now, something we can do about that is to put a pillow underneath the stomach, not too big because we don't want to force the neck into the bed too hard, and this will keep our spine a little bit more neutral. Now for the head, we can do the shoulder method, which won't crank the neck into extension as well. However, that is going to put a lot more stress on the nerves of the shoulder and the shoulder joints and muscles. So this sleeping position just all around isn't my favorite, and in fact it's my least favorite. So if you're gonna do that, you could add a pillow and do what feels right for your neck. I mean, none of it's super good. Don't get a big pillow. Secondly, we have the side sleeper, and for this one, we wanna make sure that, again, we're trying to focus on keeping the spine neutral. So this could be more of a stressful position if we have wide hips. This can make our back really sink into that bed. So what we can do here is get a pillow and just put it right above the hips so it can support the lumbar segment of your spine. And from there, we can make sure the pillow is not too big or too small, because if it's too big, it's gonna jam our neck into some another position we don't want. And then if we have it too small, then it's going to obviously go the opposite way. Now for the shoulder, this one is, again, there's not a crazy good position for this. Obviously laying directly on top of the shoulder isn't ideal. So I would again just allow the shoulder to roll a little bit forward for this one. Now again, not the most ideal position, but if we focus on the neck by the pillow size and then having a little bit of support here on the lumbar spine, then we're gonna be a lot better off. One more thing you could do with the top leg is that you can put another pillow here and then support the top leg over on that pillow. And again, that's going to take a lot of the stress off the hip, so that can help a little bit more as well. Next up is occupations, starting with those who sit for prolonged periods of time. So the main focus should be getting out of the chair constantly throughout the day. So we're talking at least once every 30 minutes. And we can do a decompression, a desk decompression, and I'll link the video somewhere. Other than that, we need to make sure that we are varying our positions. So it's okay if you go a little bit to the side for a little bit to ponder on a problem or something, but we can't stay in these positions forever. In fact, we can't even stay in a perfect posture position forever, because again, the discs are going to get stressed eventually, and so are the supporting musculature. So even a perfect posture position is going to be too much for your spine at some point. So gotta make sure we're getting up, moving around. As far as the lumbar supports on the chairs, guys, again, we are trying to respect our spine's curvature. So one of the biggest offenders I see is people getting these massive lumbar supports that just jam their lower back into extension, and you know, they kind of push into it a little bit, but that can make it bad as well. So our goal here is to make sure that the lumbar is supported in a neutral position, not jammed forward. Those of you who have jobs who have a lot of bending involved, we really want to make sure that we are bracing the core while we're picking these items up, really making sure that we're using the hips instead of the lower back, and I have some videos linked for that. And one other thing that's very important is the shear. Now shear, a simple example would be, we have an L4 vertebrae and the L5 vertebrae with the disc in between. Now we have compression, which is if you were to hold an item, that would put compression forces on the spine. But now if we were to bend over and try to bring an item towards us as we're picking it up, that is adding a shear component. So we are pulling the disc and compressing it. Now that adds a lot more weight to the equation. Say we have a 40-pound item, we bend forward, drag it as we're picking it up. That item that was 40 pounds is putting a lot more than 40 pounds of stress on your back. So we have to keep that in mind. We have to lift safely, pick up the items as close to you as possible. I know you're gonna have some obnoxious boxes sometimes or whatever it is that you can't really do it that way, but just try to do as much as possible and do your best to avoid the bending sideways and picking up. Again, that's a lot of shear force and we want to avoid that as much as possible. And finally, we have hobbies, which is the gym for the sake of simplicity. Now, what I feel like a lot of people miss out with the gym is that you should be not just picking random workouts that you find on bodybuilding.com or from your friend, but they should be things that are supporting your goals specifically. So if you have lower back pain, how can we focus on exercises that are going to stabilize the spine, not lift the most amount of weight possible? I know everyone kind of tends to flock towards the crunches, the sit-ups, the shoulder press, chest press, all these classic movements, which can be good, and I'm not hating on them, except the sit-ups and crunches. But what really program well into a lot of people's exercises is just like a restart. Doing cable chest presses, doing cable rows. This is all gonna be focusing on getting the core and the hips to work together synergistically. This is gonna be extremely important for it's just so much more applicable to your average day life. And don't get me wrong, you don't have to stay with cables and bands for the rest of your workout career, but just implementing these for the time being can put you leagues ahead than if you're just trying to grab the heaviest dumbbells, push the weight without really having the goal. As always, if you found this content helpful, please consider subscribing. It means the world to me.